Welcome back to Strange Brew Podcast. What's going on,
Hello.
everybody?
How
Cracking
you doing?
open, cracking open that brew, that kombucha brew.
Man, you are still on that kombucha kick.
Yeah, I will. I'll never stop drinking kombucha. I'm on my sober month. Some of the episodes you hear in this month was recorded prior to me actually attempting to do a whole month sober from alcohol, which is hard for me to say. But yes, I am officially gonna do it. So I'm gonna drink some kombucha. I got a little weed in case. Always got a little bit of fucking the chiva in case you need it. So I'm pretty sure Chiva is weed and then Chiba is cocaine, I think.
No, I mean, I always call it Chiba, and everyone that I know has always called it Chiba. And then there's that
Huh.
chain of sub shops in Denver called Chiba Hut.
It's
So
actually called Chiba Hut.
yeah,
So
yeah, they
when we're
got a bunch
getting
of weed themed subs like White Widow, AK-47, Northern
I
Lights, shit
swear
like that.
someone told me I was mad, but I was like 15. They're like Chiba
They're
is cocaine. Chiva is weed. But
nah. I think they were wrong,
ill
as teenagers
informed.
are often, known
It's
to
very
be.
true. I'm always wrong, man. I still got the mind of a teenager.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
So we're gonna go into 2022, with a lot of crazy episodes. Like we're going into this year, and we want it to be a year of murder and mayhem. We're gonna start diving into bigger serial killer cases, um, crazy true crime stories. Obviously, amongst we're gonna be talking about paranormal stuff and aliens, but this year specifically, I wanna amp up our true crime and start talking more about specific serial killers and diving into big cases because I know you want to do that also.
Yeah, we definitely got a couple really good ones coming down the line for everybody.
Yeah,
I
even
don't
some
want to I don't want to
cult.
mention them right now, but a couple of some
No,
some big names, maybe even a couple lesser known, but still pretty gruesome ones. The one today though is sad more than anything. Just
is it
fucking
sad?
sad.
Why do
It
you think
is
it's
very
so
sad
sad?
because it's sad because everyone involved is a child.
And they all die,
Not
pretty
all of
much.
them.
Not all of them.
Saying even the fucking killer in this case, you have to have a certain level of empathy towards because
True.
they're a child when all this is
True.
going on, and they're not exactly from a good place. It's shit like this that I have the hardest time with. That just has
Really?
no real yeah, it has no real resolution, and it's just sad.
You know what? Like, I thought it would be appropriate because me and Billy covered one of the youngest American serial killers, Jesse Pomeroy. And this seems like this little evil bitch of a cunt is probably, and even though she's a child, she is a murderer. So I think it's okay to call her a little bitch. Her upbringing was not the greatest. We'll get into that, but essentially is that I thought it'd be a good idea for me and you to get into this. This is essentially, I would think, Britain's youngest serial killer. Because it's
She
just
doesn't qualify as a serial killer though.
no, but she did do some gruesome shit. So
She killed two people in the span of a
So,
month.
so what? Mary Bell, the 11-year-old child murderer. Does that sound
Yeah, we should
better?
probably just get into her name. Yeah, she's a child murderer. But she's not a serial killer by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, but when you're that young and you've even committed that many murders, it seems like
I'm not saying that it's good and it's not horrific. It's absolutely horrific. I'm just saying by standard by the
yeah.
definition, she doesn't qualify as a serial killer. Just like
No,
Ed
you
Gein
are
doesn't
right.
technically qualify as a serial killer.
No, and that's why when I was writing this out, I was like, and before we started recording, I was like, what do we call this? Because I had it as Mary Bell, the 11-year-old serial killer. But when I was reading it, I was like, yeah,
The
and I was like doing all my research. Technically, she isn't.
Tyneside Strangler. That's the other nickname that she has.
What is her other name?
Tyneside Strangler, because where she
Tyne.
was from is Tyneside or Tyne or
Oh.
wherever.
Imagine giving man. That's the name you're giving to 11-year-old.
Yep. I mean,
Very
I'm sure that's British sensationalism and
yeah.
and journalist sensationalism going and adding that to it after the fact to
It's
sell more
true.
copies.
It's true. So
But
Mary Bell killed two young boys in 1968. When she was released from prison after serving 12-year sentence, she was only 23 years old. In other words, Mary Bell was only 10 when she started committing her fucking murders. This goddamn crazy bitch. But
it's
her
that goddamn cat again.
but her experiences of violence didn't begin there. Pain and death were always her companions from almost the moment of her birth, which is it's very sad. Mary Bell was born by Betty, a 16-year-old prostitute who reportedly told doctors to take that thing away from me. Can you do a British accent to see the best you can? I know you got COVID, but
well, I mean, I'm over COVID at this point. But my voice
yeah.
is still a little fucking. But yeah, give me a second. Take that fucking urchin away from me. You just rip it out. I don't want it no more. Get it gone.
Get it going.
Take that parasite out me cooch. Take it from inside me fanny. Cut the cord and throw it in the bin. Throw
She
it in the
literally
rubbish
said that
bin.
when she saw her daughter was like, "Take that thing away."
Fucking cold.
I know. She is 16 years old at the time. So
I
it's
mean,
just
yeah,
like
again, everyone involved is not mentally mature enough to really.
this is a fucked up one, that's for sure. But I thought it was appropriate to get into before we started getting into a deeper, darker hole.
As opposed to
Um
a happy murder, which is what, like when Hitler shot Eva Braun and then shot himself. That's a
that
happy
never
murder.
that never happened
I
though.
know that never happened, but I'm
We
saying
all know he went
theoretically
to
here.
Argentina.
Yeah.
I don't know what would be a happy murder when Jeffrey Dahmer got killed, but also I felt bad for him because he just let it happen.
Dahmer's one of those dudes that,
I
like,
know.
man, if he wouldn't have killed people, you could have a lot of sympathy for him just because of how fucked up of an individual he was.
It's
But the
true.
moment that he started hurting other people is, the
Especially for
moment the
that
sympathy's gone.
especially for those little Puerto Ricans. Juan has a soft spot for them.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer had a soft spot for him too.
That's true. Or a hard spot.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah, he wasn't a bottom, so he didn't have a soft spot for him.
so he just just gross. I said, yeah, he just fucked those dead corpses and pretty much. So things went down, dude. Things went downhill from there. Betty was often away from home on business quotations trips to Glasgow.
I mean, there
Um,
ain't no quotations about it. She
no,
had to go to Glasgow. That's where most of her Johns were, and that's where she made her money. I mean, Tynes doesn't seem
so
like it was,
fucked up.
from all accounts, it seems like it was a pretty, for it being a slum, it was still a pretty close knit community. So I doubt very much
Yeah,
that you can go turning tricks in that neighborhood and not have a bunch of people be like, "Did you know your husband was visiting the town bicycle?" You
the
know,
town bicycle.
and I
I
mean, no
felt yeah.
disparaging. I mean, no
Yeah.
disparagement towards sex workers. Destigmatize it and legalize it. But
I know. It's just it is a hard topic to talk about considering like she's doing this to make money. She's obviously like her mother Betty has no other options.
yeah,
And yeah, and according to all the research I've done, the documentaries I was watching, um Tynes, is that what we're calling it? Is it called
yeah,
Tynes?
Tyne, Tynes.
Times. So like yeah, they a lot of people were talking about back then you could leave your door unlocked. You could just you felt safe that neighbors were watching out for each other, and essentially
Hmm.
that's how they felt, is everyone was kind of watching out for each other. Everyone was kind of the neighborhood police, you
Hmm.
know.
It
Now
was
we
a
have
slum.
the
Yeah, they were saying how like kids could just run around, and it was never a "don't talk to my kid." It was a "oh, my kid was doing what."
yeah.
Like the tales that we hear from our parents that were just like, "Oh yeah, you see your neighbor would beat your ass, and then you'd get yourself home, and then you'd get a beating at home too."
Yeah, and exactly. And they kind of like, yeah, there's kind of like everybody watched out for each other, neighborhood watch style, environment and neighborhood. Nowadays, like, did you ever have any parents like that? They're like, I'm part of the neighborhood watch, and they have a little sign in their window.
No, my parents are degenerates.
Yeah. Well, I had the one chick that babysat us, the weird one. She was neighborhood watch, of course. It's just like it's just a strange thing. You just have it in your window. It's just like, all right, if you see, and it was almost like a thing where if you're lost and you can't find your family or you're in danger, run to this house and they'll help you. But what if someone who was dangerous towards children put that sign in their window, and then it's just like, well, they're waiting for that one day that the child needs help, but they're not actually going to be that help.
I mean, it's hiding in plain sight, isn't it? At that point.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm here to help children. Help children dig their own fucking graves.
All
Yeah.
right then, back to Mary Bell.
Okay, this is gonna go bad. But yeah, so with their absences, when her mother was gone. There's periods of time for obviously young Mary, where she was also a subject. She was subjected to abuse, both mentally and physically, when her mother was present.
Yeah.
So, and she just kind of probably ran free and was able to do whatever she wanted as a little girl, which, I don't know what that would be at this time, pushing a stick with a hoop through it. I don't really know. Um,
Exploring all the abandoned houses, at least from what the documentaries were saying, that was how most of the neighborhood kids were, as they were, free to run and do as they pleased to a certain extent. And I mean, there's something to be said for that, for the whole latchkey kid thing. But even back then, it
yeah.
was, I guess it was just less dangerous of a neighborhood. Maybe it was because it was a tighter knit community.
Well, in the 60s too, like, you had murderers and killers and stuff like that. But yeah, a lot of times it's like these tight communities, and serial killers started popping out of the woodwork, obviously before this, but when they started making, a dominant presence on the world stage all over the world, as near going into the 70s and 80s,
Mm-hmm.
where everyone heard these big names. So before that, you'd be like, whatever, I'll let my kid go hang out with Johnny down the street. Oh, that's just old Herbert. He's not going to hurt them. And it's just like, meanwhile, he's doing some dirty shit in the back of a van. So.
Well, it certainly seems as though, at least in the modern, not in the modern culture, but like if you watch like movies and stuff back then, or listen to people tell, like people that grew up in the 70s and shit, seems like every neighborhood just had that, like, don't pay attention to old man Herbert.
Yeah.
If he wants to show you candy, don't take him up on it. If he's walking around in a bathrobe, come and tell somebody.
Just walking
Just like one of those type things where it was like everyone knew this person and knew their fucking deal, and then stayed away from them and told their
Yeah.
kids, don't go near that person.
Yeah, there's always that guy. Always weird old man. So yeah, so obviously, she was subjected to a lot of abuse. I'm sure with the friends and the company that her mother would keep, it probably wouldn't have been so nice either, because Betty witnessed her own sister, um, Betty's own sister witnessed Betty trying to give Mary away to another woman who had unsuccessfully tried to, like, was trying to adopt her.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was like, "Here, take her. I don't want her anymore."
Well, there was also talk of Mary, or not Mary, Betty trying to give Mary away to her parents. And
Yeah.
her parents at one point didn't want her, or they just weren't ready. And then when they tried later to take Mary off of Betty's hands, Betty just said, no, no, she's staying
No.
with me. So
Yeah.
you got to wonder, was Mary the victim of some other sort of childhood trauma? Like, was her mother using her to make extra money and it was just never spoken
Yeah, we
of?
will talk about that disturbing shit in a little bit. But essentially, like, so she was gonna, there was times where she kept her because it seemed like, maybe people would feel bad and have sympathy for her, so they'd give her money or food or something like that. And the other times where she's like, I can't deal with this. I'm just trying to suck some dick, and she's in the corner staring at me. I just can't do it. I need to make her money, or we both don't eat.
I guess it was more than that too. Like
Yeah.
from the one documentary was saying that her mom specialized in BDSM primarily.
I didn't see
So,
that one,
oh, you
really.
didn't? Yeah, that was in one of
No.
the really longer documentaries. The first one that
Oh,
I watched that was like an hour
fuck.
long.
That's
Yeah, and then
crazy.
the judge also, or not the judge, one of the officers had also mentioned that Mary was very clearly present for some of her mother's activity. It was a one bedroom house, so
So she would have just been sitting in the
where's she gonna
corner,
go?
which is disturbing. But this happens on Strange Brew. We talk about disturbing stuff. I know you find it interesting, but I'm gonna try to make fun of it any chance I get, even if it is extremely
We just don't make fun of the victims. We make fun of the
yes,
people doing it.
yeah, it's true. Sometimes the victims, if they die in I, ways that are funny to me, we might make a little. We might poke a little fun, just a little poke. So obviously, like, and so her sister quickly recovered Mary herself before her sister Betty was giving her away.
Hmm.
So Mary was also strangely accident prone. She once, quotations, fell from a window. She most likely was actually pushed by her own fucking mother.
Yeah, neighbors report that she had allegedly. One of the neighbors said that she saw Betty by the window, and she thinks to this day she believes that Betty had pushed Mary out of the window. That wasn't the first time that she had tried to make it look like an accident and
So
get rid of her
fucked.
daughter, dude. Like, but I
Damn,
just
son.
It just speaks of how just devastatingly poor everyone's mental health is in that
Yeah,
area,
that's true.
or at
That's
least the
true.
people involved in this story.
Yeah, so she fell from a window, pushed by her mother, most likely. Which Mary fell, and she had a bad head injury. And what do we
Mhm.
know about serial killers? I know that you said they disproved this, but I
The
do think
head
that's linked.
Well, so the McDonald's period has been refuted, but
What is
it's
it
not
called?
saying McDonald's period. I want to say,
Is the guy that thought about this theory? It was his name, Ronald McDonald.
yeah, he was a 7 foot tall clown. That no, it was just the example of the original Ronald McDonald, which is weird that they made it into a franchise icon. But the real Ronald McDonald
He studied
was much
serial
more
killers.
akin to what's his fuck the hog farm dude up by your neck of the woods,
Oh,
Robert
Robert
Picton,
Picton.
where
Yeah.
he'd grind up his victims and he'd stick them into a Happy Meal and he would make toys out of their bones.
There is legit conspiracies where people think that fast food restaurants do have human meat in it, and that
I
it
doubt
becomes
it.
addicting.
I
I
doubt it.
know, but you know what? Here at Strange Brew, we say anything is possible, and I wouldn't put it past a bunch of pedophile billionaires to be like, you know what? We have a whole truckload of these East Indian boys that we need to get rid of. So you know what?
You wouldn't
Good
you
burger
wouldn't
meat.
be able to pull it off though, because that's how you get those fucking proteins in your brain that create mad cow. If you're a cannibal and you're eating, and how many people eat fucking McDonald's every goddamn day in fast food? You get those spiked proteins that make you go crazy. So we'd basically be seeing like zombie style freakouts a lot more
Well, why,
often.
you remember that? Did you ever see that movie Alive? Me and Juan just talked about
No.
where
Oh
the
yeah, you guys were, yeah,
rugby boys, all the rugby team that flies over the mountain, they end up dying. Well, not dying. Some of them die and they
crashing.
crash,
Yeah.
and then they have to essentially eat each other and eat their friends and
Mhm.
people even part of their family to survive. So and they didn't get mad cow disease or mad human
I'm not
disease.
saying you get it all the time. I'm saying some people carry those spiked proteins, and I think that if you were just mass disposing of bodies, then that's how it would happen.
Hmm. Yeah, you're probably right. Now the spike
Besides,
protein is in this shot.
we'll get Soylent Green before we get people in McDonald's.
Yeah. So she had a head injury, and and they it can be related to people kind of becoming crazy and losing there's a certain part of your brain in your frontal lobe which is essentially your decision making lobe.
It's the
You know
part
what I
that
mean?
controls like rage and
Yeah.
psychological behavior.
That's why you have football players that have head injuries and they beat their wife in a fucking elevator. So
Was
it
one of the things
happens.
one of the things blamed for that they tried blaming the Chris Benoit situation on was
Oh
his
yeah.
steroid use, the head injuries, the concussions, all of it.
I would like to dive into that. I was a fan of wrestling when I was a child. My favorite was Kane. My brother liked Undertaker.
Kane.
So I would like to get into Chris Benoit just because how fucked up that story is. It is extremely that's a sad one. I feel like that's even sadder. Is that a word? More
It's way
more
more sad.
depressing
More
than this
sad,
one.
yeah.
Because at least that one's more recent. This is in the 60s. I don't care what these fucking British people were doing. I wasn't even alive then. I was fucking on Mars hanging out with some aliens at this
The
time. I don't
the amount of empathy that you have never ceases to amaze, Connor.
so and then there's another occasion where she accidentally, like Mary Bell accidentally overdosed on sleeping pills, which is accidentally, and people said they saw you. I think you mentioned that her mom was feeding her the pills. Her mom was giving her the pills. So
Allegedly, yeah. There's obviously never enough
allegedly,
stuff to do anything about it. But at the same time, I mean, we're talking back in the day where it was like you could more or less do whatever you wanted as far as disciplining your kid,
it's true.
and the state's not really going to get involved.
She also got a hold of bleach at one point, but according to Trump, you can drink that shit and it'll cure COVID.
No, he said inject it, don't drink it.
Injected, that's even better.
Yeah, right.
There
What's
was
that possibly going to do? People
I don't
used to
know.
give their kids fucking bleach enemas.
There is a point where Peter McCall, the guy who's on Joe Rogan, that doctor that tried to blow off the lid of some of the shit that's going on, did say that you can use a very watered down bleach to essentially clean out your like airways and some about I
The
didn't
nasal passages.
yeah, and it
Fuck
helps with
that. I'm
COVID
not.
and shit.
No, no. I'm all
You don't
set.
want to do that? I'll try it.
No.
I'll try it on the podcast. And then if I die, someone call 911. So, but Betty claimed it was all accidents. Like it's just like I don't know. Mary's just a she's just so mischievous. She likes to get into everything.
Yeah,
Some
Mary. I mean, Mary was described as definitely as a mischievous kid, but that's what they all did back then too. Hang on, I'm gonna
It's
fix my
true.
chair.
While you're at it,
There we go.
turn on your headphones a little bit or something. So randomly, I can hear my voice come
You can hear your voice. How?
through your mic probably. I did this
Um,
from the audio, but I just heard it like 3 times.
that's weird. Maybe because I was so close.
Yeah, your mic sounds are usually pretty
Yeah,
good.
they're usually on point. I don't know why it's being dumb right now.
So maybe it's just the stream that's maybe catching it or something like that. Because I don't think it's
That
mine.
might be it. Yeah. If you have any of the video up on the other side.
Yeah, that's gonna be true. Okay, so we're good. We'll be fine for the fucking video. Um, some attribute these accidents to Betty's determination. She literally was determined to get rid of Mary. So they think that part of the reasons why if her mother wasn't doing these things, it was that Mary was essentially doing this because her mom wanted to get rid of her and she was trying different ways and it was probably messing with her psychologically.
It was definitely messing with her psychologically. Any child, especially if it's early adolescence. And I mean, you figure she's probably just about to hit puberty, and
Yeah.
like your brain's already wired in a really fucked up way when you're a teenager. I can only
True.
imagine how bad teenage girls have it with the extra level of hormones and stuff. With
And then
boys, I
watching
mean,
your
it's
mom
like,
prostitute, not understanding what she's really doing or why
yeah,
she's
and
doing it.
whatever stupid explanation she's given to you at the time, well,
Yeah.
this is how we're eating, or that's just mommy's boyfriend of the hour, or
Yeah.
whatever. There's no way for us to know, but it's
No.
it's no fucking condition for a child to be raised in.
Fuck no.
If you're lucky, you turn out to be Richard Pryor. If you're lucky in that
Yeah.
situation.
Didn't his dad molest him or beat him
Richard
or
Pryor's mother was a prostitute.
Oh yeah.
He was born in a whorehouse. Like Richard Pryor is like one of those few people that's like, man, that's the example of like you can beat it, but you also might set yourself on fire freebasing cocaine. So
What's who's that black musician that had the name Gay?
Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye. Didn't Marvin Gaye shoot his dad?
Marvin Gaye's dad shot him
That's so fucked
because
up.
he was jealous of his success. Marvin Gaye was murdered by his father because he was
He was
jealous
actually
of his success.
murdered by
Yeah,
his father.
his
He
dad
actually
killed
died
him.
from
Yes,
that.
I think his dad
Huh.
shot himself afterwards. I
You
believe
think
so.
maybe that'd be a good topic for the famous dead because that's fucked. I remember hearing about that and I was like, what a crazy story.
Yeah.
Your own father shoots you back. You know what? You're just too successful, son. You know, you're just too successful. You're making me look bad. And his dad's working like a carpet store, fucking like I don't know what people
No, I
do at
think his
carpet
dad was
stores.
his producer or some shit. That's the thing is, I think Marvin was like taking care of his dad, and his dad just
It's got
had a
jealous.
fucking psychotic break. I'm sure
That's
some of
great.
his friends were fucking ribbing him or some shit, being like, "Yeah, man, your son is doing pretty good. Well, I'm better than my son. He wouldn't be no
Yeah.
way if it wasn't for me." Like, fuck
Yeah,
you.
there's a lot of people that have attitudes like that, especially with fathers. Be like, well, he's only that way because I fucking helped raised him. Da, da, da,
Britney
da.
Spears' dad.
Yeah, it's true. That's weird. So,
There's
well,
a
like,
bunch of people like that.
yeah, because other people do maybe see her symptoms as Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
Munchausen's by
Um,
proxy, yeah.
yeah, so that's Munchausen syndrome. Me and Juan did talk about it on that crazy biatch from Florida, and she was I think she was like 14 or 15. She killed a bunch of people, but it's Florida, so it happens.
It's
You're
Florida, so
raised
they
with
executed her
alligators.
along with 3 mentally handicapped gentlemen.
Yeah,
Oh wait,
that's
that's
true.
Texas. Sorry.
Close though. Betty longed for the attention and sympathy her daughter's accidents brought her. So that's also probably why she was like, I want to get rid of her. And then people are like, oh my God, what happened? What happened to Mary? And it's just
Well, that's
like
what
she got all this
Munchausen's is.
attention.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
yeah, that her because her mother was still young enough, like you know what I mean. Her mother was having her when she was 16-ish, and then as she's growing up and she has this little girl, and then she's getting attention by this little girl getting into trouble essentially.
Well, a big thing in the UK and I know in Ireland as well, for unwed teenage mothers, more often than not, they went to a church-sponsored home where
Yeah,
they had the child, and then the child was given up for adoption, or it was just left in the orphanage, and then that person left and was expected to never, ever, ever speak of their time spent in that hospital
yeah,
again.
I saw that
So
too in that doc, and it was the fact that like they they just took away the kids, and there was that stigmatism of a mother without a husband kind of thing, like
Right,
a mother without a
right.
father
But maybe
for a
that's
kid.
why the neighborhood and the community was a little more open
Hmm.
to like maybe you got a little more respect if you came back with the baby or you just had the baby
Yeah,
versus going and giving it up. Like it was deemed to be the polite, respectable thing, but people had more sympathy for you being like, oh, they have a child, so I'm going to
yeah.
help take care of her.
Because I don't know who they're referring to. I think because technically Betty could have Munchausen syndrome, or so
Yeah,
could
that's who
Mary.
they'd be referring to as by because Munchausen's by proxy is the when
We're doing it
you
for
get
attention.
addicted to the attention that you get for having a sick child. That's
Yeah.
what Munchausen's is. Yeah.
Yeah. According to, or when me and Juan did, her name was, maybe it was like Jessica or something. I can't, that's a throwback to like a couple months ago. And we research and we talk about a lot of topics. And
Mm-hmm.
they described it as essentially she was like loving the attention. It was getting attention from essentially having like a mental illness.
Yeah.
And which is fucking crazy. So, according to later accounts given by Mary herself, her mother began to prostitute her out when she was just 4 years old. And you
Oh,
know
see, I
what?
didn't come across any of those. I didn't know that it was alleged that Mary had been being prostituted.
Nasty.
4 years old, man. That's young.
That poor child.
That's disgusting.
It's
It's really
horrible.
fucked up. And you know what? A lot of crazy things happened during the 60s. So her mother would have been technically like 20, 1920, maybe 21,
Yeah, if she was
prostituting.
16, then yeah,
Yeah,
that's
prostituting her
that's
own
just
daughter. So
people like that
fucked
should be
up.
shot.
Yes, I said this was gonna get dark, and it's gonna get dark. Though this remains uncorroborated by the family members, that we don't know. They didn't say that this actually did happen. It's just it is a theory. They did know, however, that Mary's young life had already been marked by a loss. She had lost her 5-year-old friend. Did you see how this kid died?
No.
She lost her 5-year-old friend probably when she was around 5, obviously. And this kid was ran over and killed by a fucking bus. A bus killed her good friend. And I don't know if she witnessed it, but that is really fucked up.
What the
Who's
fuck,
driving
dude?
those? Who's driving that bus? Is it fucking the Magic School Bus and they're just like flying off into space?
It's the guy from Pet Cemetery.
Or yeah. Or remember when Freddy Krueger drives the bus with all the kids in it?
Yeah.
Could be that. But he didn't like to go that young, even though I guess Freddy Krueger technically was a
Oh yeah,
child
he did.
molester.
Freddy Krueger was like a young child killer and child molester. He didn't kill teenagers until he was already like,
Yeah.
the Nightmare King.
And it's funny because they do talk about how people want them to dive into a backstory on Freddy Krueger, but a lot of people won't take it because it would be disturbing.
I don't want a fucking backstory for Freddy. I got a backstory for Freddy. With
He's a
just
child
stop
molester.
fucking rebooting and giving stop. Just stop with the origin stories. No one cares.
Because and then they try to do it so it wasn't so bad. What's the whole thing is it's supposed to be scary with Freddy Krueger is that he was a child molester. He got murdered alive. He came back to avenge his own death. But when they did the remake and they tried to make it like, oh, he actually wasn't a child molester. He
No, the
was just
remake
trying
they
to
do.
they were trying to protect him. She thinks that he is, and then later on, she finds out that he was actually a child molester. Don't you remember? They go through this thing where it's like, oh, maybe he was just trying to protect us. He was protecting us, and at the end, she learns that he wasn't.
No, I don't remember that at all. I just remember that movie being the worst pile of shit that I ever saw in my
It
life.
is
It's
the
garbage.
if they would have just had better actors, it could have been not that bad.
They wouldn't
But
have gone CGI
I know.
and decided they were just going to cover Jackie Earl Haley's face in really shitty CGI
Yeah,
and
it's
make
so bad.
a new origin story for Freddy. It's like because they did that Friday the 13th one too, which had
Which was actually
Sam
pretty good.
from Supernatural. Yeah, I was going to say that
I
is an
like that
example of
one.
like how you reboot your slasher franchise, and you're like, all right, cool. But it's the same thing. Jason has been played by multiple people.
Yeah,
Freddy up until that point has only been played by Robert Englund.
my homie.
Yeah,
Somewhere up on the wall over
he's
there.
fucking dude. Robert Englund's a goat.
And but what's his name? Jack Healy or
Jackie Earl Haley. He did a phenomenal Rorschach.
yeah.
He's great
He
as
could
Rorschach.
have done a good job, but I blame the producers. You know what I mean? So
I think he could have, but I think the problem is it's
You
the same
can't
shit. Like,
not.
look at Chucky. They had
Yeah.
Mark Hamill voice Chucky, and no one cared. No one wanted it. Everyone was like, no, this is stupid. It's like, cool,
Yeah.
we love Mark Hamill, and he has a great voice, but Chucky is Brad Dourif.
No,
Freddy is
I
Robert
agree.
Englund. There is no wiggle room on that.
I think they should do one more Nightmare on Elm Street and just pay Robert Englund a lot of money. I know he's old, but man, they can do it. He's not that old. I've seen older actors.
Just
Keith
have him do the
Richards
voice.
goes on this fucking stage and dances around.
Get him in a voice booth. Get him in a recording booth. I mean, and have him do the voice. And then you know what? You can CGI his face if you want, but it would be better to just have somebody with a bunch of Freddy makeup that kind of looks like Robert Englund.
Yeah.
And if he's not up for the physical aspect of it, the technology is there. Don't fuck it up.
True. But we're talking to nobody because nobody's gonna listen to us about horror movie. What's the word I'm looking for? No one's gonna listen to our horror rhetoric, and
that's not true at all. We're gonna be starting for Patreon. We're gonna have our Unreal reviews. We're gonna have plenty of people that are gonna listen to our horror shit.
But we gotta get some famous people. We gotta like talk to Wes Craven's dead body and be like, "Yo, can we resurrect you for an episode?"
It's called Clive Barker.
Yeah, he's like the only good one left, really. John Carpenter's still alive, though.
I mean, the only good. Yeah, I was gonna say you better show some fucking respect for John Carpenter.
So, given all that had happened, it is no surprise that Mary, by the age of 10, had become a strange child, withdrawn and manipulative.
Manipulated.
No,
manipulative.
Manipulative.
Yeah.
Had become a strange, withdrawn, and manipulative. Also,
you had it. No, you had it. Good job.
A manipulative kid, always hovering on the edge of violence. It's like she's just kind of on the teeter-totter. You know, she's kind of never know.
Psycho Norm. Psycho Norm.
She does have a crazy look for everyone that sees the episode art, because it usually goes up to Podbean and maybe a couple other podcast apps, but a lot of us just use our main logo. But yeah, she's got some scary little eyes.
That stare. They and every report says that her eyes were very distinctive, but that's what they say about every killer. So like the eyes. The eyes
are the window to the soul.
Yeah, I'm like, that person probably has a whole bunch of weird thoughts going through their head constantly, and their eyes are just like,
at you. Yeah, just looking around like they don't know what the fuck's happening. So for weeks before her first murder, Mary Bell had been acting strangely. And on May 11th, 1968, Mary had been playing with a 3-year-old boy when he was badly injured in a fall from the top of an air raid shelter. That's a fucking military shelter, is it not?
Dude, this is 1966. So World War II is a very... Sorry, 19... Whatever.
Okay, yeah, same shit.
2 years. World War II is a very close memory. So like your grandparents fought in World War II, most likely.
And that's why there were so many slums probably too, is because everything was bombed to shit and they just build back the nicer parts first and then slowly got over to other parts of Britain.
Yeah.
So fucked.
Plus then, you know, your factories aren't churning out the war items that they once were. Most countries were still in a horrible period of fucking like
devastation,
poverty and devastation in Europe post World War II, except for America, because we didn't have anything happen on our own soil. So it was just like, fuck it, you know. And then we had still had the economic boom from making a whole bunch of weapons and tanks and shit. And then we had the economic boom because we were still making weapons because we were still technically at war with the Soviets.
Yeah, and then it came in, you know, and then 9/11 happened. Then you guys got in the forever war that has never ended and still not fucking over.
Yeah, technically we've been in a forever war since 2001 now. Yeah,
it is kind of crazy because I predicted that the next like big war would be on American soil, but nowadays it's just like gonna be bombs.
I don't even think it's gonna be bombs. I think it's just gonna be like economic shit. I think the wars are gonna be fought by computers. Maybe a couple drone strikes here and there if it actually gets to physical combat.
Was that secret wars with quiet weapons, or quiet weapons used in secret wars?
Quiet Weapons for Secret Wars is a chapter, I believe, in Behold a Pale Horse.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense because, you know, nobody really knows about it. It's done behind the scenes.
Well,
but obviously, this is
the outcry, the public outcry. That's what you try and avoid by having a quiet war is when you have a bunch of people and with especially with especially with the ready availability of, you know, media and being able to see what's
Information.
going on and actually get a proper view of the situation. You're not going to have people that are willing to romanticize war like they once did.
Yeah, so essentially, British was still building back better, and the parents thought it was an accident. And the following day, however, three mothers came forward to tell the police that Mary had attempted to choke their young daughters. Three different mothers was like, that little fucking bitch over there tried to choke my daughter. I don't know, they weren't playing. She just like openly is like, come here, and then just started choking my daughter.
Well, her thing was apparently it was like, oh, let me see your throat. Oh, you have a sore throat. Okay, I'm gonna fix it. And then she would just slowly tighten her grip around people.
So fucked.
There was an interview with a one woman who was a schoolyard. I wouldn't say
Homie.
chum or
Yeah.
homie. I would say a schoolyard associate of Mary Bell. That was one of the girls that was. Oh shit! Tom's getting stoned.
Yep.
One of the girls that Mary Bell tried to strangle.
So
And
fucked up.
dude, I mean, yeah, this whole
This
this
is a
whole case
this is a
just
dark
it's not
one.
getting any better, people, so strap in.
Daddy, chill.
Daddy chill.
So
Bitch.
a brief police interview and lecture did result. They did talk with her, but no charges were filed because she's a little girl. The police probably thought like, no way.
Yeah, let me see your hand.
Yeah.
Stop strangling your friends.
Yeah, that's probably what they did.
Okay.
Then on May 25th, the day before she turned 11, Mary Bell strangled 4-year-old Martin Brown to death in an abandoned house in Scotswood, England. She left the scene and returned with a friend, Norma Bell. No relation, they were just friends, and Norma wasn't so intelligent.
Norma was a simple child.
Yes.
She was a follower and possibly one of the surviving victims of this because
She
I'm
would
willing to
everything.
bet that Mary probably did some stuff to Norma too.
Yeah.
Because if Mary is the predator that she's been led to believe to be, or we've been led to believe that she is, then I would assume that she's
She
going to
probably
prey on
did some
anyone that she
shady
deems
shit.
weak.
Yeah, very fucked up. I'm pretty sure I don't know if I have. I've heard that I think Martin was the one, or is it later on that there is some penis mutilation. Did you not
I
hear
didn't
that?
hear about any of that. I knew that the one boy's leg was mutilated, but
In the one doc, I think that they did mention that I think it was Martin Brown that his penis was like cut off.
What the fuck?
Jesus, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, but I guess that would kind of go along the lines of it being a psychosexual violence thing,
Hmm.
and maybe her being influenced by her mother's, profession.
Yes, because you.
So, I mean,
But
it
I
could be
heard
that. It could just be sensationalism added after
yes.
the fact, just to sell copy, though. So who knows?
100% because a lot of it was one like 5 minute thing of this guy with a really shitty British accent. He's like just talking. He's like they cut off his knobbles, and I was like, all right, weird.
I looked down to see that his pecker and his yarballs had been chopped off. Poor little lad. Luckily, he was already dead at the time, so it's not as though he'd got to walk around with his wedding tackle anymore. But it's
Wedding
fucking
tackle.
tragic, and you hate to see it.
So Mary Bell literally strangled Martin to death
Mhm.
in this abandoned house, and then when God Norma was like, Norma, you want to see something fun?
You want to see
I
a
got
dead
something.
body?
You want to see a dead body? And then they find him, and they supposedly were beaten there by two local boys who were playing in the house and stumbled on the body. So when they went back, they supposedly got beaten by two local boys. When they saw then they're like, "What the fuck? Were you guys the one that did this?" And yeah, they've been beaten.
They've been
Okay.
beaten back to the scene. Okay, I was
Yes,
about to be like, I
yes.
did not come across
No,
that
I
in
know. I was
any
like,
of my
what does this
research.
say? All right, so I had the audio. Fuck the video. But essentially, she left the scene, returned with a friend, Norma, the special one, and but when they got there, they found that somebody else had beat them to this crime scene. These two boys who've been playing in the house stumbled upon the dead body
Mhm.
of the boy. And I'm pretty sure it's the one where they said they cut his penis off, but like that was just probably sensationalism.
Yeah, it was probably the kids and like the boy just being like, or the boys being like, oh, well, we saw something terrible and let's add our own spin to it.
Yeah, that's true. So the following day, however, three mothers, oops, past that one. Police were mystified. Besides a little blood and saliva on the victim's face, there was no sign of violence. And of course, they didn't have forensics and shit back then. There was, however, an empty bottle of painkillers on the floor near the body. So I wonder if Mary was smart enough to like she already had them and kind of set it up so it looked like he just died from overdosing on painkillers,
From
which
what
is
I saw, they said that those pills were already, they called them the tablets because that's what Europeans call
yeah.
pills, is tablets.
Well, there was no
They said
better.
they were
Yeah,
already in the house. It was left there by a previous tenant, which is why they initially thought that they ruled the boy's death not a homicide
yeah,
off the bat because they thought that he had just died because there was no apparent trauma to the throat either, almost as though he'd been strangled by a child.
yeah. They assumed Martin's Brown had swallowed the pills, and his death was ruled an accident. But Martin's grieving family might have started to suspect otherwise when little Mary Bell showed up on their doorstep in the days after Martin's death and asked to see him. His
Yeah, that
mother
was fucked
gently,
up.
yeah, this is fucked. His mother, she gently explained that he was dead. But Mary said, "Yeah, I know he's dead. I would." She wanted to see his body in a coffin, which is like she's like, "Oh hey, can I see his dead body though? Like I
And
know he's dead."
to some of our listeners out there, this is past the point where the Victorian
Yeah,
viewing rooms was a thing. Like this is to the point where it was almost considered impolite
to
for
look upon a
a
dead body.
family to hold an open casket.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, family was still allowed to see the body, but it wasn't a thing that was done by strangers
no,
and looser acquaintances. You weren't really allowed to see the body in the
I
casket,
never
so it was a
understood
very
the idea there.
unusual request. And it was reported that by her own words that the boy's mother had slammed the door in her
Yeah.
face and then collapsed. Like she just started weeping behind the door, and her husband had to call the doctor because she went into a hysterical fit.
Wow, yeah, yeah, she literally slammed the door, which I don't blame her. You
No,
had
not
this
at
little
all.
child being
I
like, "Hello,
couldn't imagine.
can I see his body?"
Can all see the dead kid? Like to this grieving mother, and it's just like
Yeah.
how horrible, how the poor mother.
Shortly after, Mary and her friend Norma broke into a nursery school and vandalized it with notes taking responsibility for Brown's death and promising to kill again. So I know there were notes, but
We
it's almost
kill so we'll come back
yeah,
or something like that.
it's fucked. And essentially, they're like doing graffiti, but admitting that it's weird that they broke into a nursery school and then they vandalized it. But they say it's essentially they're writing notes and drawing pictures and saying how they killed him, admitting to it. Be like, and that's also shows because I think her friend Norma was just she was not right in the head. She was what they'd say a bit of, but she was not right in the mind, and that she just went along with whatever Mary wanted her to do.
Well, she was a simple child and she was a
Yeah.
follower because she, you know, was probably learning disabled and a little was it not neurotypical, neurodivergent is the word we're using
Yeah.
now.
That's what we're using. We can't use the word retard anymore. Whoops.
First of all, you've never been able to use that word when you're talking about somebody that has a
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's
developmental
true.
disability. You're allowed to say, "Oh man, that game we saw last night was fucking terrible. Are those players retarded? Why did they do that?"
Yeah.
Like that's
No,
one of
I
those things where
agree.
it's like it's fine, but you're not supposed to refer to somebody who's differently abled as retarded. That's
No,
never been okay.
they're handy capable. Is that not okay? Why can I
I
say that?
don't know.
I don't
I
know.
said differently abled,
Yeah, I
and I
would
don't even
think
know if that's okay
calling
anymore. But
someone like a mentally handicap is like saying the N word to a black guy or calling a gay person the faggy word.
the faggy word.
You know.
Oh, I know. I'm well aware of what word. I mean, you did just say it, so yeah.
Remember on Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry? He's like, we can't say that. That's our word. You probably love that movie, don't
I
you?
hate that movie so
You do.
much. I
Hey,
really
Rob
do.
Schneider is a fucking Asian guy.
Fuck Rob. Rob Schneider is
Circle,
Asian. He's
circle.
Filipino.
I guess he does not look like it.
Well, he's Filipino and Jewish.
Yeah,
What
I
does a
told you.
Filipino look like, Tom?
I don't know. I really don't know
Exactly.
because they don't.
Exactly.
You can't really tell, man. They could be anything. They're kind of like the disguised race that you don't really know what they are.
Ladies and gentlemen, this Strange Brew Racist Hour has been brought to you by Tom and the Asians.
So they vandalized everything, and they promised to kill again. Police assumed the notes were a morbid prank. Just like when I jokingly talk about things, it's just a joke. It's a little morbid, but it is a joke in itself.
Except when he talks about his unbridled hatred for the Asian community. That's very real. We've been working on. We've been trying to get Tom to stop hating the
Yeah.
Asian people so much, but
Hey,
it's just
everybody should know by now that I have a fascination with Japanese women, and if me and Chelsea divorce one day, I will be going for some sort of Asian. It might be Taiwanese. It might be from Thailand. It might be not from China, and not from North Korea. It's got to be like Japanese, Thai, something like that.
you don't want that underfed North Korean box.
No, maybe South Korean, but not gonna say anymore. Not gonna say anymore. For the nursery school, this was just the latest and most disturbing in a series of break-ins. So I don't know if they just kept coming back or it was just a bunch of who breaks into a nursery though.
Well, okay, so one of the
Is that
pastimes of the
Krampus trying to steal
children,
children.
one of the pastimes of the children in these areas. I mean, the one area was known as Rat Alley, where the boy was found, and that again,
Rat
to add
Alley.
insult to injury, that poor mother. The newspaper started referring to the boy as the Rat Alley boy, and
The
she
Rat
was.
Alley boy.
Yeah, she talks about it in the documentary how she's like his name's associated with rats now, and I didn't like that very much. It's like, you poor woman.
I know,
Like, you just want to reach
really
through and give
sad.
her a hug and be like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this.
This is maybe about like I don't know, maybe 10 years too early because it could be Jimmy Savile. You know how much he loved nurseries.
Not too early. Not too early. That could be Jimmy Savile.
Yeah,
But anyway, so
he was the first disc jockey in the 60s. Off topic. We'll get into Jimmy
he
Savile
claims to be the
Savile
man
again.
who invented disco, and from everyone, like the internet, like what I've looked up, might be correct.
But also, he is probably one of the worst pedophiles in Britain to exist. I would.
Oh
think.
yeah, he's
smuggling children to fucking MPs and people in power and prime ministers and stuff like that.
It's entirely possible that he is even more prolific than Jeffrey Epstein. Yes.
Yes.
But back to the thing about breaking in. Most of the kids played in abandoned buildings.
Yeah.
So breaking and entering, I'm sure, was just a pastime that kids
What a
engaged
time to
in.
grow up in. Like, even 10, 20 years after the war, things are slowly it takes a while to rebuild things. Ask Joe Biden to build
the
back
70s in the
US.
fuck Joe Biden. Joe Biden ain't rebuilding shit. Joe Biden's making life fucking miserable.
So true.
Like my gas is almost fucking $4 a gallon right now.
Yeah,
Fuck
our
Joe
gas
Biden.
is really expensive because of Trudeau. So we're on. Yeah, it's literally happening here too.
But
yeah, they hung out in abandoned buildings, I guess, and it's just a nursery's a weird place to go. But it was, I guess it was, they installed. So these people were so wary about this, and this is not even an abandoned building. This is like a building where they probably still keep kids, and so they did install an alarm system. It's probably just, it's one of those clapping monkeys. And if the door opens, it just sits there and clap, and there's a janitor sitting in the fucking side being like, oh, it's a monkey again.
I did just watch a new horror movie on Shudder that has something kind of like the monkey with symbols, but it's a little drummer rabbit. And whenever the ghost shows up, this thing starts going off. It's like,
What movie is it? Was it any
Caveat? Good? It's called Caveat. It's filmed in Northern Ireland.
Is it any good? I like the
Irish. It's really good. It's very psychological.
Huh, I'll have to check that out.
It's it's a minimalist horror though, so if you're looking for a bunch of like ooh ah jump scare, don't watch it.
That's like it's a psychological thriller then, right?
Psychological horror.
All right, I'll check it. I like psychological fucking shit because I'm psychologically unsound.
Aren't we all?
It was a smart choice because they caught Mary and Norma at the
Mhm.
scene of the crime several nights later. But as they were simply just loitering outside when police arrived, they were let off the hook. Like, man, this little girl seems to get herself in all sorts of messes. But
Well, they said that
she's a little girl.
she had a fascination, like it was known that she had a fascination with death and with other morbid things, which I mean does not mean that somebody
No,
is a killer. Like that's if that's what that meant, then you and I are both fucked. But
it's true. It's
um,
definitely true.
yeah, morbid fascination obviously does not mean that one has a
No,
proclivity to acting in bouts of violence
I
or
would have killed lots of people
terrible
by
things.
now.
But she was Tom holding up the knife for our audio listeners. Many people said that yeah, she just kept popping up whenever there was trouble, and
Yeah,
she was known to be a bit of a wise ass around most people. So
yeah, she was kind of a bit of a bitch. But they couldn't really do anything. So in the meantime, Mary was telling her fellow classmate that she had killed Martin Brown. The fact she's bragging about it means that she's not that smart, but she does know what she did. She knows what she's done to
I
a
mean, she's a
human life.
child, so I wouldn't don't even know if
She's
she's necessarily
bragging
not
about
that
it.
smart, but yeah, of course she's bragging about it because she doesn't understand. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, I'm sure in her mind she's like, well, they said that it wasn't murder, so I got away with it. She is also known to lie, like a lot. Like
yeah,
she's apparently like a pathological liar, which is probably one of the other reasons she's like either no one's going to believe me, or
mm,
I can say this and I'm admitting it, and no one will even believe me because I'm known for lying. Like maybe if it went
true.
that far with the thought, but who knows?
So her reputation as a show off and a liar prevented anyone from taking her claims seriously. That is until another young boy turned up dead. So she kills for a second time. On July 31st, 2 months after the first murder, Mary Bell and her friend Norma killed 3-year-old Brian Howe by strangulation. I wonder if it's a fascination with seeing the life go out of his eyes because or just well, it's just it's a 3-year-old boy and she's like 11. So or it's the idea of that she's been abused her whole childhood, so she wants to inflict that abuse on somebody else that is meeker than she is.
She's probably seen her mother get strangled numerous times by
Hmm.
Johns,
Yeah, because
or
everybody
she's
likes
seen
a
her
little
mother
rough.
strangle Johns. Who
Yeah.
knows?
It's true. But yeah, that idea, I think that she probably wants to inflict pain on others because she feels that it makes her feel better because she has been dealt a lot of pain in her life.
The
Couldn't
transference of
imagine.
emotion, yeah.
Yeah. So this time, Belle mutilated the body with scissors. Yeah, so I was right. This is the boy. She supposedly used scissors to scratching his thighs and butchering his fucking penis.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about the butchered penis. I did see that they said that she had punctured his legs. And that was
Yeah.
only in the one documentary that I watched. It was touched upon briefly in some of the articles that I read.
According to the
But
lore, she did scratch up his thighs and she butchered his penis. She cut it off. And
mm,
that just shows if this did happen, if she did cut off his dick,
Damn, son.
she has something seriously and mentally wrong with her more than just strangling somebody. If you're going to mutilate their body afterwards, it means that you have some sort of very sick fascination with death.
that just sounds like if that's true, if she
Hmm.
did in fact mutilate that poor child in that way, then I would say that the psychosexual aspect of it and someone very clearly had to have committed some sort of egregious violence against this poor girl.
Yeah, yeah. And now
Like
she,
that's
if
not
she
something that
was
a normal child
no,
does. Even a disturbed child, I don't think would do that
I
to
think
another
getting
human.
getting essentially raped for money, so your mom can eat, and maybe she's too tired and doesn't want to do it. If that's true that she was prostituted by the age of 4, I think that would really fuck you up.
Well, her mother's. It was said that her mother was, she took to drink and drugs to null
Mhm.
the pain of daily life. So I don't know if her mother was a drunk and a drug
Eats
addict back
her,
then,
doesn't
or if it
care. Yeah,
was
because there
after.
would be those crazy ass assholes, right? Those sick people, especially back then. Depravity was, I feel like, even worse back in the day because you weren't as easily caught. Everything was kind of a little more lax, especially about children. It is extremely true that there could be those times where they're like, "No, we'll pay you this much, but we want to have sex with her." Like, and then it's just, ugh, and it just goes downhill. And then she's part of this whole abuse and stuff, and very
Yeah,
sad.
it's definitely a whole system of abuse, and it's a very cyclical issue that it's just something that it happens to one generation, and then that generation, if they don't break the cycle, it just perpetuates upon the
Yeah.
next.
I think molestation and stuff like that was very turn a blind eye to it. A lot of people did. I fucking highly believe that shit.
Fucking
Especially
horrible.
I think before like especially before even the 80s. Like if you just go back every even during World War II, World War One, like people were too busy fighting the war. And then before that, like it was just people starving and just rich people and poor people. And like this stuff probably happened every single day, if not more. And then people just turned a blind eye to it because they had other issues to deal with.
Terrible.
And now we live in a time
Absolutely
where like,
unforgivable.
it's getting better, but if Ghislaine gets off, then we're all doomed.
I don't think
So,
Ghislaine's going to get off. And if she
no,
does get off, it's because she turned state's evidence on a lot of people.
yeah,
And there's going to be a lot of arrests. And if that's the case, then I mean, you make a deal with the demon to get a bigger demon, or a bunch of them for that
I
matter.
know.
So
So
without
true.
Epstein being around, she ain't going to do shit.
I know. She needs to expose some people, but we'll never know. I think they're going to try to hide as much as they can.
They
Uh,
have. They don't allow.
mhm.
They changed
They're
the
not
thing.
press.
Press is supposed to be allowed in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Supposed to be, but they're not. They banned them from the courtroom.
I
And I
wonder
understand what the
why.
sensitivity of the case. Well, if that's how they did it with all cases like that were
Mhm.
deemed very sensitive, I could see it, but
They
it
don't though.
reeks of preferential treatment.
It's very true. So when Brian's sister went looking for him, like, "Where's my little brother?" Mary and Norma offered to help, which is just even more sick. But I just think that Norma just is like one of those very simple, not many brain cell little girls that just like, okay, let's go. Like, doesn't really, they don't have, she doesn't have a cognitive ability to understand even what is happening.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah,
She could be autistic back then, like a high form of
probably. Yeah,
autistic, and they just labeled it as you were like a retarded, which
you're
is
slow.
not. Yeah, you're slow, you're dumb, which is mean and terrible in itself. And we're gonna try to watch making those jokes from now on because it doesn't need to be said, I guess.
Tom says we like I've been cracking jokes about it.
Yeah, it's been. I think it's been a little too long. But they searched the neighborhood, and Mary even pointed out the concrete blocks that hid his body, almost like she was relishing, almost like a serial killer, and her own satisfaction that she did this. Like, look. And Norma said he wouldn't be there, and Brian's sisters move on. So Mary's like, yeah, like yeah, he's probably over there. And then Norma's like, I don't think so. He's probably over there. And then it's just like, all right. And then she just walks past it when
Says
she
he's going to
could have
get better
found
about it. Makes a voice 3 seconds later.
That's true.
You
When,
son of a bitch.
when Brian's body was finally found, the neighborhood was panicked. Two boys were dead, and it's in like a very small time, like a month period, 2 month
Yeah, it's
period.
like less than a month or something
Yeah.
like that, which is crazy.
Police interviewed local children, hoping someone had seen something that would maybe lead to a suspect. They received a shock when the coroner's report came back, as Brian's blood had cooled and new marks appeared on his chest. Someone has used a razor blade to scratch in the letter M on his torso. Mary's like, there's my calling card.
I
I
did see
am the
that
Joker.
it was, yeah, they had said that someone had tried to carve their initials into the boy, and it's like
Yeah.
that just reeks of it being a child, where it's like, it's the
Uh,
same thought of like, oh, I'll go put my initials in that tree so everyone will know that I was here. And
and
it's
they
like,
did. I suppose I think they get into it, but that Mary did blame Norma
of
because
course.
she probably knew she was not as smart as she was, and she was like, yeah, she wrote that on him. And this whole thing is fucked up and crazy and disturbing. The fact that a child, even anyone in general, just carving into a dead body and scratching your initials in it. Even the Charles Manson murders when they wrote war on the guy's fucking chest and shit like that. Like that whole idea, and that this is a child doing that, and it's just like it's very fucked up.
Yeah.
Very fucked up. And I told you it was going to get fucked up.
Yeah.
How
Yeah, we
fucked up
warned
is
you.
fucked up. This is fucked up.
We've
Uh,
warned you.
Yep. So, and there was another disturbing note. The lack of force used in the attack suggested Brian's killer might have been a child. So they could surmise that much. Mary and Norma did a poor job of disguising their interest in the investigation in their interviews with the police. Both acted strangely. Norma was excited and Mary was evasive. Norma was like, "Ooh, attention, attention."
Mhm.
Like the police are giving her attention. She gets to talk to the police. When the police point out that she had been seen with Brian Howe on the day of his death. So, and this is when she got worse, like she got more like quiet and evasive and didn't want to talk about anything.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, it seems like Norma was excited, but it's like, how do you know to believe someone, someone who doesn't have a high intelligence even as a child? They already
Right.
make up things to have wild imaginations as it is.
Mhm.
So on the day of Brian's burial, Mary was spotted lurking outside of his house. This is like she does have traits of like a psychopath, like a serial
Oh,
killer,
if she would
even
have
at
never
this
gotten
age.
caught, or she would have gotten older before this kicked in, yes, she would have absolutely become a proper serial
She's
killer, I
fucking
believe.
creepy. She even laughed and rubbed her hands together when she saw his coffin, like, like rubbing her hands together like a fucking psychopath,
Like a fucking villain, like a proper villain.
like a literally like a villain, like a Monty Burns fucking
Yeah.
excellent type of shit.
Excellent.
Excellent. Which is fucked. So they called her back for a second interview, and Mary, perhaps sensing the investigators were closing in, she was obviously smart enough to know that I could be caught for this, and I would be in trouble, big trouble. That's probably how
Mhm.
she sees it, right? And she made up a story about having seen an 8-year-old boy hit Brian on the day he died. The boy, she said, had been carrying a pair of scissors. That was Mary Bell's big mistake. The mutilation of the body with scissors have been kept away from the press and the public. So nobody knew about like that they could at least surmise that he was mutilated by scissors.
Was the second thing too that she had told the police, or the police had found out that she knew that nobody else was supposed to know, which was that, and she drew a picture of the boy's body with the tablets next to it.
Oh yeah, and that would
But
lead her to the other death.
right, but if she was already there and the cops had to remove her from the site, then that was the one thing that I was like, maybe the documentary dude just kind of misspoke on
Yeah,
that, because if she saw the body, then she would have seen the tablets, and it doesn't matter if they would have, said that we didn't release that information, so she had to be there. It's like, she was there. She was there when you guys saw the body.
yeah, so she would have been able to draw that.
Right.
But it was a detail only known to investigators and one other person, Brian's murderer. But if I say she didn't do this, just out of, I don't know, fucking hypotheses. I don't even know if that's a correct word to use, what I'm about to say, but it's essentially that she could have saw the body, just not want to tell police. Feel like it scared her.
Well, she was there
Yeah.
allegedly when the police like had to remove her, because her and the other kids were hanging out near the body, and the cops were like, "There's a crime scene. You got to go."
Yeah, so why wouldn't she have known that it maybe was scissors? Maybe she saw the scissors,
Well,
but
no, the scissors is there's no way for her to have known,
hmm.
because unless she was there, the tablets are what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's true. Both Norma and Mary broke down under further questioning because these are hopefully it is Britain, but hopefully they're skilled professionals that understand tells, especially in children. And Norma began cooperating with police, and she implicated Mary, who
Hmm.
herself admitted to being present during Brian Howe's murder, but tried to place the blame all on Norma. She's like, try to place it all on Norma. It was her fault. I didn't want to do it. Both girls were charged, and a trial date was set. Let's get into the trial of 11-year-old Mary Bell and her accomplice Norma Bell. It's just funny how they both have last name Bell, but no relation at all. Very just a strange, this small thing of coincidence is just weird.
Hmm.
At the trial, the prosecutor told the court that Bell's reason for committing the murder was solely for pleasure and excitement of killing. Meanwhile, the British press referred to as she was born evil, evil incarnated.
Yeah, they went real sensationalist with it, of
They
course.
definitely did. this is after 20 years after the war. Nothing's going to be as exciting as men going off to die for government interest. That will never gets more exciting than that. So the jury agreed that Mary Bell had committed the murders and handed down a guilty verdict in December. Manslaughter, not murder, was the conviction, as the court psychiatrists, psychiatrists had convinced the jury that Mary Bell showed classic symptoms of psychopathy. So it's kind of funny that you could be like, well, she's a psychopath, so she didn't really mean to do it. It's like, no, if you're a psychopath, you're a fucking psychopath. You intended to do it. That's your whole thing, was that you wanted to do this.
Not that she didn't intend to do it, it's that she's not 100% culpable for her actions because of an existing psychological condition.
She couldn't be fully responsible for her actions. And
you could be charged with a lesser crime, basically.
Looked at her background, though, with the stuff with her mother and everything like that, you could surmise and say, like, essentially, like, she's kind of, she's fucked up.
Well, yeah, if she'd come from like a posh family that was well-to-do, and then they'd probably be like, "What the fuck is wrong with this?" Although, if she'd come from a posh family that was well-to-do and she just murdered some poor kid, they probably wouldn't even have reported it. They just swept it under the rug and been like, "That's not my child. You're not investigating my child. Go away."
Very true. So Norma Bell was regarded as an unwilling accomplice who had fell under a bad influence, and she was acquitted because they could probably clearly see that she was mentally not stable.
Well, that's what they said, yeah.
Compared to Mary, who obviously, she had some sort of intelligence, that's for sure.
Mary? Oh yeah, 100%. They said that she was a charming kid, and she, she loved the attention and liked being spoken to by the investigators, and
crazy. So the
probably the most attention she had paid to her by anyone in an authority position in a very long time.
And that's true. And you know what? And that could lead to why she did do these things, was for essentially what they, talked about at the beginning, was it was about attention, and how her mother never gave her attention. The only attention she got probably would have been some really disgusting sexual acts done to her by men that her mom was involved with. So, and she wanted, obviously, that's not the attention no child wants. For every fucking molester out there, no child wants that type of attention, even if they tell you they do. That's fucking wrong. So the judge concluded that Mary was a dangerous person and a serious threat to other children. She was sentenced to be imprisoned at Her Majesty's pleasure.
Yeah, so basically an indeterminate amount of time. They said, so the Western way to say that is life. Basically, really? It just means, you can be released at Her Majesty's pleasure. So whenever the fuck she feels like it.
When the Queen's like, all right, we can let her out now.
Well, I suppose we could let her out now. It's been 300 years. She's bones. How are you still alive, you crazy lizard?
That's true. A British legal term that denotes it's just the way you said. It's a British
life with the possibility of parole.
It's an indeterminate sentence that they don't know when you're going to get out. And yeah, you explained it quite well, because I didn't know what the fuck at Her Majesty's pleasure.
I had to look it up. It
sounds wrong, man. It does sound wrong. Basically,
she gets to show up with a stick and just poke you through the bars.
Yeah.
Oh, this is fun.
Basically, until the powers that be feel like it's appropriate to let you out.
Mm-hmm.
Is how to put it. So apparently,
until you're,
until what?
Until you're deemed to no longer be a danger to society.
Yeah,
basically.
Threat.
Yeah.
So it's just funny that we have people in power that determine those sorts of acts, and some of the people, even some of the judges that are doing that, are sometimes even worse than the people that committed the crimes. And it's just the power of money to influence, to be honest. So apparently the powers to be, they were impressed with Bell's treatment and her rehabilitation, and felt like it was appropriate to let Mary Bell out in 1980. She was released on license, which meant she was technically still serving her sentence, but was able to do so while living in the community under a strict probation. So she probably had to go see somebody every fucking 3 days.
Probably.
Or they check up on her.
Yeah.
They might check up on her because she would have still been pretty young, like in her 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
23 when she got out,
Yeah.
allegedly. Yeah.
So additionally, Mary Bell was given a new identity to provide her with a chance at a new life and protect her from the tabloid attention. Even still, she was forced to move several times to escape the houndings by by the tabloids, to essentially in the newspapers and the general public, and essentially like fucking the paparazzi. But they
Yeah.
just didn't have paparazzi back then. But people, obviously journalists and people in that wrote newspapers were digging for the story. Everyone heard that she got out. Like
Muckrakers.
even if you had people that were inside the prison or the psychiatric ward that she was held in or whatever, right? That when they let her out, there was probably at least 2 or 3 people that told the media and was like, yeah, they're letting this crazy bitch out now. So make sure you hunt her down and write a story about her. And
I'm
pay
sure,
me first,
yeah.
though. Pay me first, though. I told you.
Throw him a few bob, throw him a few quid. Just be
Yeah.
like, all right, we're good.
So, which somehow they always found a way of tracking her down. Things grew worse for Belle after after she had a daughter in 1984. You shouldn't. You should not have had
4
a kid.
years after she got out, she had a kid. Which, okay, look, if she has been rehabilitated
Kid. She'd been a
and
good girl.
she has gotten the psychiatric treatment that she needs and become
Yeah.
a better person, then yes, if that is what would give her a fulfilled life,
Yeah.
sure. I
It's
guess in the
fucked.
interest of rehabilitation
Yeah, I
and
guess it's true.
you
Get
know
another shot at life. Look at if Carla Kamoka can fucking have her own kids, Mary Bell can. So
the Duggar family can have their own fucking kids or what. Who the hell were those fucking
Duggar family.
Yeah, wasn't there like a Mormon family or something like the Duggars? Weren't they like involved in some scandal or some shit?
Oh yeah, we'll have to talk about that. I don't know.
Or was that a
Every episode.
kidnapping?
I think it was a kidnapping, but we could be wrong
I don't
because
know.
we've been
Yeah.
wrong many times on this. We pull information right out of the asshole. So Belle's daughter didn't know about her mother's crimes until she was 14. Very fucked up when a tabloid paper, a newspaper essentially, a sensationalized one, was able to find Belle's common law husband and thus tracked Belle down. And then, he shows up and he's like, hello, little girl. Do you know your mother was a fucking criminal?
You know, your mum killed a couple of lads when she was but a wee lass.
Even younger than you were, which is even more fucked. Imagine
That's
finding that
fucked.
out.
People like that are terrible. Like the tabloid
Yeah.
dude, because they're not doing it because of some misguided sense of justice. They're
No.
doing it to sell fucking rags and to be
Yeah.
sensationalist.
To sell their stupid papers. Look at Perez Hilton. Now he just apologizes all the time.
I don't even fucking. I forgot that man was a thing until you mentioned him.
Soon, a slew of journalists surrounded her house and camped out front of it. There's these thin line between like, yeah, you shouldn't really, after all the things you've done, you shouldn't really have a normal life. Especially with someone like Carla Homolka, to be honest. Like, she should be hounded by everyone until she hides herself in a hole like Saddam Hussein. But
That's
it's
Paul
just,
Bernardo's fucking bitch, right?
yes,
Carla Homolka.
yes, that's Paul Bernardo's woman. But yeah, she should have been, hound her to hell. But essentially, but it's just like, this girl did do it when she was younger. It's hard to have this a very thin line. But to then the side of the paparazzi and the newspapers of just like, especially back then, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, into when celebrities became a thing. It's like they do harass them, and it is kind of crazy. Even people like Tobey Maguire, leave Tobey Maguire alone. It's like screaming at them when he's in his car driving away. It's just, it must be stressful.
Part of it is on the
Especially when you're not a
consumer.
murderer.
A good chunk of it is on the consumer. So any of you who really enjoy celebrity news, partially your
TMZ.
fault.
Chelsea always
Partially your
looks
fault.
at TMZ. So yeah, it's true.
It's like how the press tried blaming people about Princess Di afterwards, where they're like, "Well, you like buying the fucking stuff that we sell you, so it's your
Yeah.
fault." And it's like, no.
So stupid. We'll get into that too. That's coming up this year for sure. It's talking about Princess Diana, at least surrounding her deaths, and I would like to dive into her a bit.
The fact
Not
that she was
sexually.
gonna have a Muslim baby, and the
Yeah.
queen just decided that she was gonna get, she was
Or
getting a little too big for her britches.
or she knew about the reptilians.
I doubt she knew about the reptilians. I would be much more apt to believe that she knew about Prince Andrew's
Anything is
shenanigans.
possible. Anything is possible, and
Yeah.
you keep forgetting, man. You just keep forgetting that. Oh no, I can't find it. Where is it? I'll edit this out of the fucking audio. God damn it! I was gonna say we always know, right? We always know.
Reptile wins.
Reptile always wins.
I suppose.
Seems like it. So the family had to escape their home with their bed sheets over their heads, like they're Michael Jackson and his kid Blanket.
Blanket, no, you're being ignorant. Stop being ignorant.
Today, Belle is in protective custody at a secret address. Wow, she's still alive too. Both she and her daughter remain anonymous and are protected under a court order. Her who knows? Maybe she's a good mother.
It's called the Mary Bell Order.
Is it actually?
I'm serious. Yeah, they had to they put a law on the books for her to be protected from paparazzi.
It's kind of crazy, and I don't know her, man. I don't know her. I'm not going to try to interview her, but if I could, strangebrewttv gmail.com. Let
Mary
me know
Bell,
if you
get a
want.
hold of us.
Yeah, after we've made very tasteless jokes about you, but who knows? She could have been a good mother. Obviously, her daughter does care about her, and she found out some fucked up shit about her mom, but they're still together, or they still at least keep track of each other. Even if her daughter might be a little older now, her daughter would probably be.
Well, if she had her when she was 1984, then she would be almost 40.
Yeah. So yes, and so Mary Bell is an old hag now, and she's sitting at home lonely and thinking about her decisions. It's just crazy that, man, those people that you killed 2 little boys when you were a little girl, and then now you're still alive and you're just old, and it's just like, do those things just I would feel like that those memories would constantly haunt you for the rest of your life.
One would assume. One would assume that they would haunt her, but I would hope that she would also have had, if she is to be released in society, I would hope that she would have the appropriate psychological training to know how to not compartmentalize it, but kind of forgive yourself almost for it, while understanding that it's still like the worst thing that a person can do.
Yeah. So idea what it is when you're that young, man. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing at 11 or 12.
No one does. No one knows what they're doing.
You don't know what the fuck is going on in life. You're just trying to live it, man, and just trying to take in all this information that's around you. And if your information is your mother prostituting herself and selling you to fucking Johns and pimps and stuff, it's just that's not good. It gets warped very quickly. So some feel she didn't deserve the protection. June Richardson, the mother of Martin Brown, told the media, "It's kind of about her. She has to feel protected, as the victims were not given the same rights as the killers." So very sad.
Yeah, that is the argument.
Nevertheless, Mary Bell remains protected by the British government to this day. And court rulings protecting the identities of certain convicts are unofficially referred to, as you said, the Mary Bell Orders. So not even just her, other criminals that have been released that essentially are protected by the British government, they call it the Mary Bell Order because of her.
Because she was the first.
Very fucked up case. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself on this true crime experience with Tomcat and Anton.
Yes, Tom. So one quick question, and this is my off color joke. You think that they protect her because whenever they have one of the kids that is there for Prince Andrew or for Queen Elizabeth to eat, maybe one gets out and they call Mary Bell and they're like, "We have a job for you," and she hits a button and she goes to her Jason Statham room and
I could see that. Yeah, it's a fuck joke, but I really dig it. That she's like almost like she's like Jason Bourne, like some 007 fucking child killer. And,
but she's a cleaner child killer that she has to go round him up and bring him back because the buffet's not over.
She's like the
go all reptile
Dexter or something. Like
she's like a super evil Dexter.
Yeah. She's like Neil like a crazy Liam Nielsen in fucking Taken, but it's just I have a special set of skills and it's to kidnap and kill children.
Oh my god. And you just see her like in an ice cream truck the next scene.
No, I could see her like almost like a Manchurian Candidate, where as soon as the queen, it's like one has escaped, she shoots off in her fucking rocket fucking jetpack vest and just like goes and looks for those children. She has like fucking night vision goggles on. She's all about it. She just carries a pair of scissors, these crazy elaborate pair of scissors with her.
Oh, the queen pushes a button and her eyes just roll back in her head. It's like, "I'm going to get the paper."
Yeah. This is a truly fucked up case, and we always try to make light of things, even if they're extremely fucking dark. It's the same. We talked about Chris Watts. the guy that killed his whole family. We got a lot of downloads on that. People even wanted a part 2, and I was like, I think we've covered it. Like I think it's dead in the dirt now. But that case was also very sad. But we're gonna get into some sad cases on Strange Brew that it's easy to talk about someone like Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer. We've covered like Ed Gein. It's been overplayed so many times that it's like you kind of you don't really bat an eye to these serial killers. You feel bad for the victims, but these guys are so almost interesting that it kind of takes away from the sadness.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. It's just like these people are so fascinated by serial killers. It's fucking crazy. And this will set up for a lot of big cases coming up in the future. I don't know why we chose to go for a little girl this time, but it was a fucked up case that I had ready to go for a while. And I remember researching this and saying, yeah, this will be a very fucked up case. We're going to get into it before we start getting into some heavy hitters and some big boys,
Yeah.
So
thank
where
you for
can
joining
people,
us as always.
thank you for listening. Don't take offense to anything. We're just joking. Everybody love everybody.
Yes.
But where can they find you, Antonio Banderas?
Oh, just HP Shovecraft on Instagram, Invader Daggett _TTV on Twitch. You can pretty much search HP Shovecraft through most social media and you'll find me.
He's on TikTok. He's got a little TikTok going.
I do. Oh yeah, I always forget I have TikTok.
I know. And Clapper, which I barely use. I just post random clips to Clapper because it gets
Same.
some views. But yeah, www.strangebrewpodcast.com. Get some merch. We have 3 merch sites up now, but we're gonna build up the Teespring one because it might be better for some specialty listeners in the States and maybe overseas for a little cheaper.
The shipping's a little better. Yeah,
it's a little better.
Don't forget,
yeah.
We have some videos up on Patreon as well, including that first Christmas special that came out.
Yes,
so we have get your asses over there.
Yeah, get on Patreon. That helps us. That supports us, and by keeping the world strange. And we're gonna have a lot of fun stuff in the coming new year for Patreon. We mean it. We promise. And a promise is always kept at Strange Brew. But you can support us. Follow me at the Reptilian. Follow the Instagram at Strange Brew Podcast. Follow us on all social medias. We have the Host Heads page on Facebook. But I'm slowly getting sick of Facebook and the metaverse, and
it's only taken enough time.
Juan's inside there. I know. I only use it to promote. That's pretty much and to go on rants about vaccinations, but that's about it.
So you use all social media for.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But yeah, stay strange out there, and we love you all. Everybody love everybody.
Keep watching the skies.
What is that from?
It's from everything.